Hey everyone, Dukaness here with a video about beating Aksis, the final raid boss. I know I promised raid tutorials in my last video, but bigger YouTubers already had guides up like a couple of hours after the raid launched. Since I'm not here to rehash how-to guides, I'm not going to be explaining the mechanics or how to beat Aksis. Instead, I'm going to focus on how your team can perform better in the fight. I'll explain how you can avoid the most common ways of failing, offer some ideas on how to DPS more efficiently, and how you can take the captains out more efficiently. Dropping the captain swiftly is a huge factor in a smooth run, because if you don't hit Aksis with all the Siva bombs, you're going to be wiped out by critical Siva density levels. I know some teams use Gjallarhorn and or supers to drop their captains. I would advise against that, because supers and rocket launchers can get you out of bad situations should things go wrong. Like you can always drop a Gjallarhorn or a tether bubble, etc. to control adds or save yourself in a pinch. I also advise against using primary and secondary weapons, since this takes a long time and normally requires 2 players to take out a captain. Instead, I recommend using a sword. If you're under 380 light, it's going to take you 2 uppercuts to take out a captain. Remember, those 2 uppercuts cost you 10 ammo out of 55, as opposed to 2 Gjallarhorn shots out of 5 or 7. As soon as you see that Guardians have been empowered by Siva, one of the players on the left or right should charge the captain's door. I personally go invisible on my Night Stalker to avoid shank damage, but that's not necessary if you were diligent in controlling the shanks. I meet my captain at the door, and I uppercut him before he can attack me. I personally believe this is the optimal way to drop a captain when you consider time, ammo conservation, and safety. The area where the middle captain appears is absolutely brutal, and in my experience, it's the cause of the majority of deaths in the Aksis fight. Since dying throws a pretty big wrench in the flow of things, you're going to want to avoid going down there if you can. So, I started to take that captain out with the cannon I got from my captain. So watch here. You just saw me take my captain out. I want to end up on the left side because my servitor is either going to be left or middle. So I hit the middle captain as I make my way over. I continue to the left side in case they're struggling with their captain over on the left. With preferably your highest light level player taking down 2 captains, and possibly 3 if your team is struggling, everyone else can focus on shank control. This allows your captain slayer, in this case me, to move around the map without worrying about taking damage from anyone but the boss, which is pretty easy to dodge if you're mobile. With the shanks down, there's less risk of failing to take down the servitors or missing your Siva throws. So I hope you guys are kind of starting to see how designating one person to easily handle the captains frees up everyone else's time, which then snowballs into a smoother, less risky sequence. We talked about captains, so let's talk a little bit about avoiding failure. There are 2 common ways I found that my team was failing this fight for. So the first was just people dying, just flat out dying. When someone dies, one person is either going to have to throw 2 Siva bombs or take out 2 servitors. And it's absolutely recoverable, but it causes extra chatter and it blocks out other communication, such as sorting out which empowered players will go where. Since we talked about how not to die during the empowered phase, I just want to say a couple of things about the Shank Phase. I think most people know this, but you should be staying back in the Shank Phase. The Shanks are going to come at you, and they don't really have that much range, so you can funnel them towards the stairs to avoid being surrounded. Once the captains come out, you can push forward a little bit and make an effort to clear out Shanks closer to their spawn. Just don't do anything dangerous that's going to risk you going down. The most common failure comes from empowered players failing to dunk Aksis after he teleports. We have a pretty simple system of ensuring this doesn't happen. I think this has been covered in other guides, but I want to have it here for a complete video. A mistake we made early on was having one person cover the inside and outside teleportation in the middle, and then just assigning one guy to the left and one guy to the right. This is asking for failure because even if the middle player stands dead center between the 2 teleports, they have to constantly spin around to see where Aksis is going. It's also a long run to cover even if you do it right. So instead, we assign the middle person to the outside spot. The player on the right simply covers the right, and then the player on the left covers the left side and the inside middle. The run is easily makeable by standing right here, so don't panic. One more side note about the empowered phase. Whenever someone doesn't get to their spot on time, it's usually because the empowered players were unable to hear each other over the other chatter. Since this is the most chaotic and volatile part of the fight, if you aren't empowered, you have to stay quiet. Sorting out who goes where can be messy based on where people ended up, so keeping the chat efficient limits miscommunication. If you got the empowerment phase down pat, you're ready to deal the majority of your DPS against Aksis. With 4 platforms to protect you from the critical Siva levels, you have 5 full cycles to DPS Aksis, including the enraged one. If your team is over 360 light, you should be able to manage the required 20% damage per phase. Full disclosure, my team was all 360 light, with 2 of us being 365 and me being 380. Obviously, you're not going to have as easy of a time if your team's average light level is lower, but there's definitely time to get the required damage in, and there are ways to improve your damage. Obviously, a Weapons of Light bubble on the middle stairs and a tether on Aksis after his final teleportation in each phase is ideal. Everyone's doing that though, and if you're not, that's part of your problem. There are two other ways my team increases DPS. For starters, obviously your highest light level guardians do the most damage, so your cannons should be saved for those players. When I run with my crew, I empty 2 full cannons and the second highest level guardian empties the other. Wait until the final damage phase to use the majority of your cannon shots because that's where you're going to be using the damage buffs. Secondly, Viking Funeral on a Sunsinger's grenades causes the target to take increased damage from other sources. That's your team. Your team is the other sources. So definitely have a Sunsinger put a solar grenade on Aksis after he's done rotating. If your Sunsinger is confident they won't die in the next sequence, have them pop Radiance and continue to throw solar grenades. Watch this clip in slow motion. As a Sunsinger, you can actually pull the trigger on the cannon, throw a solar grenade while you hold down the trigger to charge it, then release the cannon for max damage. If you're supered, fire another shot, then throw another grenade. Rinse and repeat until Radiance is no longer active. You can throw grenades on other classes while charging the cannon as well to save yourself a valuable second of damage output. I suggest everyone throws grenades that linger for long periods of time since Aksis doesn't move around in this phase. Just to really drive the damage point home, take a look at these screenshots. I'm doing 67,000 damage with the cannon. As soon as a tether is dropped, that increases to 90,000, which is a 35% gain. After getting Weapons of Light, it then increases to 122,000. You're not going to see that clip until the solar grenade runs out, but that's another 35%. Then with Viking Funeral active, this increases to 128,000 for a final 5% gain. The best part is, these buffs don't add, they multiply. So with Weapons of Light, a tether, and Viking Funeral all active, you're doing 91% extra damage. That's almost double damage. And actually, if you have 2 solar grenades on Aksis, you can do 134,000 damage with the cannon, which truly is double damage. You cannot afford to leave that on the table, so make sure you're using your buffs effectively. Before I summarize this, I have a question to ask you guys. To be honest, I debated whether or not I should post a video like this. As I mentioned before, there are numerous raid guides already out there, so I kind of feel like I'm just regurgitating things that have already been said. And you know, if that's the vibe that you're getting, I need you to give it to me straight. Just say, Duke, you're wasting your time. I didn't learn anything from this video because I've already seen all this stuff elsewhere. On the other hand, I think there might have been a few tricks in here that aren't as well known. In that case, also let me know that. And then alternatively, maybe you knew everything I said coming into this, but you like me as a YouTuber and you wanted to hear my take on things. I know I watch all of MTash videos on Crucible School, even though I already know 95% of what he says or what he's going to say. I just like him as a content creator and I enjoy his unique perspective on things. So maybe you feel that way about me. I don't know, but I would appreciate it if you'd let me know which way it is. I know I've been asking you guys a lot lately, comment on this, about this, like this video. If it's getting annoying, I genuinely apologize. But I am getting to that point in the channel where I need to know if certain videos are worth making or not because I am doing this part-time. I can't afford to waste 5 hours on a video that you're not going to watch. So if you could take 30 seconds to leave a quick comment about what you think, it would mean a lot to me. Okay, let's wrap this up. Number 1 priority, don't die. You can wait to get your cannon if you're low on health. Someone else can throw your Siva bomb if you need to regenerate. Your team can help you clear out Shanks. Someone else can do all of your jobs, so make sure you don't go down. Get your captains down fast and use as little heavy ammo as you can. Have a corner cannon take out the middle captain to limit the risk of dying in the middle. Once the empowered phase starts, the only people talking should be the 3 players sorting out who goes where. After Aksis is done teleporting, use a tether, bubble, and solar grenades from 2 or more Sunsingers to double your damage output. Save your cannons for this part of the DPS sequence and make sure your highest light level teammates are the ones firing them. Stay focused, stay positive, talk about your mistakes, develop chemistry as a team, and most importantly, enjoy the raid. I'll see you guys this weekend for trials. Dukaness out.